Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, grab your drink of choice, your beverage of choice. Glass of wine would be good. Don't forget the Kool-Aid for the kids. Call your neighbor, call your friends, call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your grandpapa, your nieces and nephews, your auntie and your nenen. Let them know that Simon Says is on. Get your notepad and your pencil, your heart pills and your headache pills that you might need for your high blood pressure, your tablets. Buckle down. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, I want to get a couple of questions out of the way. I had them since last week, but they always get left because they're in the back. My question today is to the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Arthur Pay, and the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Or might I say Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada? Asking for the people, what happened to the new electoral system, the new machine we need to get to update our electoral listings? So what happened to that? Because we hear nothing about it anymore. We're going to stick with the old system that's been breaking down every other week. Just a question there for the people. And my next question is on behalf of a pensioner. And her first question is, what is the status of the pension secretariat within the Ministry of Finance? Is it true that the desk is not functioning? Is it true that pensioners whose payments have to be made adjusted after 12 and a half years are yet to get any definite word as to when the adjustment will be made? So just those two need to get out of the way. These days, we're not getting there, right? On behalf of the workers of the port, both the stevedores and the workers of the Grenada Port Authority, in a letter sent to me by numerous port workers, a combination of the Grenada Port Authority and the workers and the dock workers, gave the Prime Minister 10 days to remove the chairman of the Board of Directors, Mr. Ron Antoine. Now, let me pull up this letter here. Let me get my glasses. This one calls for glasses. And it reads, untouchable port workers gave PM 10 days to remove 4-term chairman. So the chairman been there for 4 terms. The United Workers of Grenada Ports Authority have issued a non-negotiable 10-day ultimatum to Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, demanding the immediate resignation or removal of anti-worker chairman Ron Antoine. The workers are also demanding that all contractual obligations owed to employees be fulfilled immediately, including unpaid benefits, vacation leave, and other entitlements long delayed since 2005. The statement leaves no room for delay. Failure to act will trigger full industrial action to defend workers' rights, dignity, and livelihoods. Their patience has been exhausted. United they stand. Their demands will be met. The workers declare, warning that anti-worker practices by the chairman will not be tolerated, and justice, fairness, and respect for human dignity cannot and will not be postponed any longer. In a decisive escalation, the workers have placed all Grenada Brewery's cargo on red alert. Will the Prime Minister act against a powerful, long-serving figure or protect him? Now, that sounds really serious, really serious. Mr. Antoine served as chairman for 4 terms. The end of the 10 days will be Friday, the 7th of November, 2025, which is today. Read, the workers also has an ongoing petition asking for the removal of Mr. Ron Antoine, chairman of the Port Authority Board of Directors. Mr. Richard Chase represents the Seamen and Waterfront workers, workers, also known as the Stevedos. He attended a meeting some time back where he refused to sign some contract. And as a result, he was asked by the chairman to leave the meeting. He refused and remained. Since then, only Zoom meetings are held, and Mr. Chase is not provided with the links to join the meetings. And so all communications between the board and the workers have ceased. The workers now have no representation on the board. More than a year now, I've pleaded here on Simon Says for help for the Stevedos and the hazardous conditions under which they work. After that episode, as I was told, managers and so showed up measuring, and they received 2 pieces of gears, a 20-foot and a 40-foot, and they continue to use all the other old gears. They are using a 20-foot spreader strap to strap up to lift up the trucks and the tractors, right? And that is because they don't have proper gears. They literally have to make up gears to do their job. If you look on the screen, you'll see photos of the gears. Conditions have worsened on the port. Didn't think in my mind when I saw what they were using, didn't think it could get any worse. And I'm speaking about months now, as I say, almost a year now, or over a year now. But it has gotten worse. And the workers' lives are at severe risk. Now take a look at the wheel. If you look on the screen, the wheel of a forklift in use, only 3 nuts holding it together. All the original nuts gone. And on the screen there, you notice again the corner of a 40-foot spreader bar. And that also is in use. Look at the state of it, where the lock turning totally damaged. It has 4 corners, and that's one of the corners we've shown you, all of which are in that serious condition. That's what the corners look like. And another photo there, you see the top of the 40-foot spreader bar. See how it's all bent out of shape? That's what's supposed to lock the spreader bar. We were told over a year ago that sometimes when they're working, it comes apart and it comes out of the loop. So they have to tie it up and strap up and do all sorts of things to protect themselves, right? That's the condition of the gears the workers have to use, right? All day long, the machines have to be getting fixed. The mechanics have to come and fix. and they get a little work out of it, and they have to fix again. And that is what these workers have been going through for years. The deadline for the removal of the chairman, as I said, it's today, the November the 7th, 2025, and the workers, all of the workers, meaning the stevedores and the Port Authority workers together, will down tools next week. We all will be affected, especially the business people, right? The Christmas season is here, but I feel the workers' pain. They are humans. They put in the hours, as one worker said to me, while we are asleep, the rest of us are asleep, they are out on the port risking their lives. Sometimes they work through the night to 6 in the morning, get an hour rest, and have to be back on the port for 8 o'clock. And all in an effort to help out persons who have, whether it's barrels or business people who have their merchandise on the port. They've lost lives. They've lost limbs through these gears that are not up to mark. To Prime Minister Deacon, the workers have a message for you. They say they know the game you're playing. They said that the majority of the workers on the port, on the docks, the men who making the noise now for pay, for proper gears, they and their families and friends voted for you. And now you've turned your back on them. They said the politicians work for 2 terms and receive pension. They have to work until they're 65. And on retirement, they can't even enjoy it from all the chemicals they inhale on the port, and their whole body break up. The workers threatened, come what may, next week, they will pull the plug. So, Prime Minister, those were the demands of the workers on the port. And as I said, it's not just the stevedores, it's a combination of the dock workers and the Port Authority. So that's full blown. Last time when the dock workers strike, you had members from the Port Authority going over and kind of filling in the spaces, the blanks, you know. Now, we had a parliament sitting on Tuesday, the 4th of November 2025. Mickey Mouse Parliament sitting. Since Tuesday, the 28th of October 2025, we saw the Mickey Mouse-ness that was taking place. Now, if you remember well, the sitting ended abruptly when the Speaker of the House was bullied by the member for St. David into adjourning the sitting prematurely. The sitting was adjourned and rescheduled for Tuesday, the 4th November 2025, without consulting with the opposition, and instead of holding a caucus, going in the back and discussing if the 4th of November is okay for everybody and stuff. A motion was called on the floor, and the ayes had it. The ayes always have it, right? On Wednesday, the 29th of October 2025, the members of His Majesty's opposition in the House held a press conference to speak to the nation on what they termed overbearing, the treatment meted out to them as parliamentarians, the disrespect, and the general breakdown of governance. A leadership crisis, it was referred to. Here's a snippet, or snippets rather, of the leader of His Majesty's opposition, Honorable Emmeline Pear, as she addressed the nation.
We are at a point in our country where we are forced, I would say, to have this press conference because it's very painful to even raise the very issues that we are about to raise. Because what we are experiencing, what we are witnessing, can only be described as unprecedented. What we are experiencing is a crisis of leadership in this country that concerns us deeply. If we don't care about Grenada, we will say nothing. But because we care deeply and we believe that there must be a turnaround of this situation, we come this morning to again register publicly our concern about what we see happening and what we are experiencing. And I want to start specifically with the schedule for Parliament that has been agreed upon by both government and opposition side. According to the schedule for Parliament, there should have been a sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday, 16th September and Tuesday, 21st October. None of those dates materialized. In other words, there was no sitting of the House on those days. What is unfortunate and unacceptable also is the fact that we agreed on this schedule, but at no time did the government, from where this schedule originated, at no time did they feel that it was necessary to consult with us as an opposition as it relates to the change in the dates. Mindful, and let me say this, the reason that we establish a schedule of monthly sitting of the House of Representatives and Senate was for the very reason of how the government was managing the schedule. It appears to us that the schedule was being developed around the travel schedule of the Prime Minister and other members of cabinet, and we were totally, absolutely ignored. When this was brought to their attention several times, it was agreed that we would have a standard schedule. And so, one would simply understand that if there's a standard schedule based on what I just said, that if it becomes necessary based on your travel schedule or other reasons, that you would at least engage us in conversation. A very classic example that was open to the eyes of the public was yesterday. When it was decided that there was going to be a change in the date for the next sitting of Parliament, you would notice that the date was decided upon between the leader of government business and the Prime Minister without even glancing towards the side of the opposition team. I rose and I questioned whether or not we were going to be consulted. And the body language is sufficient to tell the story. I don't need to tell the story of how we are ignored in the House of Parliament. This morning, it is extremely unfortunate that I have to detail these instances of total disrespect in the first instance and then move on to show how serious the lack of leadership and governance in this country continues to affect us. After 3 years, going on 4 years now, it appears that this administration, the government side of the parliament, still don't seem to accept and understand that the people of Grenada elected an opposition. They elected members to parliament who form the opposition. And so we are equal in parliament as parliamentary representatives. So I bring your mind back because I want you to understand that this is not just a new development. It started from the very day the parliament was convened after the last election, you would recall that the booklet that is normally produced for this very historic opening of parliament after a general election, and I'll use this particular instance, the names of the members of the opposition team was nowhere. And I challenge anyone to search our history. There is nowhere in our history where this would be recorded, where you have a parliament, opening of parliament, and members of the House are not listed as part of this historic event. But if you search that document, go back and find it, you would find names there who were not members of parliament at the time. Yesterday in parliament, you would realize also that I raised the subject of the formation of committees. The Speaker of the House confirmed that it's a necessity, it is a requirement that committees are formed at the first sitting of the Parliament. And if you are listening and following, if you go back, you would recognize that in essence, the Prime Minister overruled this. So in spite of the fact that we had, before every member of Parliament, the list of members to comprise the committees of the Parliament so that the work of the Parliament can get started in earnest, you would recognize after the Prime Minister's statement, we moved on without the formation of those committees. Brothers and sisters, the details of the communication and the expression of our concern, those will be dealt with by Sister Clarice, our parliamentary representative for St. Mark's. But let me just draw a serious correlation. I mean, we can go into every aspect of management in this country, whether it has to do with diplomacy, whether it has to do with signing of the Samoa Agreement. You can go from day one to this current day, and you can just see the pattern of mismanagement, disorganization, and what appears to be just a blatant disregard for citizens of this country, for institutions, and for stakeholders.
So the government side went ahead and left the date of the next sitting as November the 4th, 2024. 2025, I'm sorry. His Majesty's opposition put out a release the morning of the 4th of November in protest of the treatments meted out to them in the Parliament. Now, in last week's episode, I did play the whole piece of what happened, and you saw the way they were just ignored. And the Prime Minister said what he had to say, and the Speaker of the House just bowed down. And he didn't even remember what was his duty and what was the member for St. David's duty. Now, the statement reads, NMP defends the dignity and integrity of Grenada's parliament for immediate release. November the 4th, 2025, St. George's, Grenada. The members of the New National Party Parliamentary Caucus have taken the decision not to attend the sitting of the House of Representatives scheduled for Tuesday, November the 4th, and of the Senate on Thursday, November the 6th, 2025. The decision was taken after careful review of the troubling pattern of unacceptable behavior and blatant disrespect demonstrated by the government side of the House for the constitutional role of both the opposition and the institution of the Parliament of Grenada in Grenada. The last parliamentary sitting was chaotic. The Prime Minister scolded the Speaker and unilaterally dictated the adjournment of the House. It came after serious procedural failures, with members receiving documents late, a clear breach of parliamentary norms and respect for the institution. At that last sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday, the 20th October 2025, the adjourned date for the sitting of the House was unilaterally dictated to the Speaker by the government side without consulting with the members of the opposition or respectful adherence to establish parliamentary norms and practices. The leader of the opposition requests for appropriate consultation on the date was ultimately trivialized. Opposition members absent from the parliament on this occasion is an act of principle. As the opposition in parliament, we stand firm in protest against the intolerable erosion of our democratic parliamentary norms, the continued shameful attempts and marginalize of official parliamentary opposition, and the creeping authoritarianism that has no place in Grenada's parliament. We cannot condone a process that mocks the very principle we, as members of the House, were elected to uphold. Principle is principle. The end. Now, after the adjournment on Tuesday, October 28th, apparently the Clerk of Parliament, Andrew Augustine, was blamed and thrown under the bus. In a print article, it stated that Mr. Andrew Augustine was being relieved of the position, which is now going to be um, taken up by pro NNP former chief of protocol Adrian Joseph. End of quote. Uh, my further probing led me to believe that Mr. Andrew Augustine was sent on leave. He was asked to take vacation, and that on and that the fact he was going to be replaced by Adrian Thomas, former chief of protocol, who was removed from that office by the NDC administration and placed on a desk at the Parliament building. Sometime before the next sitting, I believe it was on Sunday, the 2nd November 2025, in a couple of Facebook posts, the Clerk of Parliament, Mr. Andrew Augustine, spoke out loud and clear. I'll read to you the shorter of the two, and the quote, and I'm quoting here. If someone is not your boss, you don't report to them. Can they ask you to proceed on vacation? I think I missed something. If that happened to me, I would be thinking, what is that? True to form, on Tuesday, the 4th of November 2025, surprise, surprise, Mr. Andrew Augustine, the Clerk of Parliament, was sitting in his chair. As I understand it, the Cabinet Secretary ordered Mr. Augustine to take leave, and he refused for a number of reasons. The main reason being the CAPSEC is not his boss. But we all know that the CAPSEC did not take on her own and ordered the Clerk of Parliament to take leave. Lest you don't know, the CAPSEC is coming out of the Prime Minister's office. Now, the Mickey Mouse Parliament sitting continued on Tuesday, the 4th November, with the absence of His Majesty's opposition. Some of us looked on as they masturbated, all alone, and they still couldn't get it right. Who's sleeping? Sleeping?
Establish an independent, not-for-profit international organization known as the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable Land Management. The primary purpose of which is to promote sustainable land and soil management within the Caribbean. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the agreement between the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable Land Management and the government of Grenada that is referred to as the Pistolin Headquarters Agreement was signed by duly authorized representatives of the government of Grenada and the Partnership Initiative Organization, respectively, on the 17th of June 2025. The purpose of the Pistolin Headquarters Agreement was to provide for the establishment of the Pistolin Principal Office in Grenada.
Who answering to NNP's press release while sitting in Parliament and actually posting in social media from the Parliament. And then Starboy rose on a point of procedure. The member for St. David on the items numbers called. No, listen to this clip.
Item number 15, bills.
Do you have government business? Honorable Prime Minister.
So, Mr. Speaker, if I may, on a point of procedure, I'm a bit surprised that we are at number 15. I think there were questions, ministerial statements, none of this were covered at the last sitting. So items 12, the items before bills, Mr. Speaker, were not covered. Questions, ministerial statements, none of these items. Questions, urgent questions, statements by ministers, none of those matters were addressed on the last sitting.
Honorable Prime Minister, yes, but they were called. They were called as items. They weren't called?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I do not recall them being called, and in fact, that's why I raised the issue of what was happening on the last occasion. Because I certainly knew that we had ministerial statements that we intended to make, and we were not given an opportunity to do so. I mean, if the minutes are available from the last sitting, then obviously we could clarify that. Mr. Speaker, I rise to propose an amendment to the order paper so that items 10, 11, 12 could be added to the order paper. Item 10 will be questions, item 11 urgent questions under the provision of the standing order, item 12 statements by ministers.
10, 11, 12. Honorable Prime Minister, I want to see if I get the numbers right. 10, 11, and 12?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So item 10 will be questions, item 11 will be urgent questions under the provision of standing order number 21, and items 12 statements by ministers.
All right. Honorable members, you heard the the motion raised by the Honorable Prime Minister that we go back to items 10, 11, and 12. That we revisit item 10, 11, and 12 for the sole purpose of inputs and interjections. So I'll now put it to the vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right, the ayes have it, so we now go back, before we take bills, go back to items 10, 11, and 12.
So because you don't remember, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Or maybe you was asleep. Maybe you already getting dropsy in the in the parliament these days. Now, once again, the Speaker of the House acting like he has no clue and he is the member for St. David, Mr. Speaker. In the lower house, he is the member for St. David. So once a member for St. David says so, is so. Right? Honorable Prime Minister, I want to know, just let me hear if that's what you say. 11, 10, 12. What is that? What is that? At this stage, he couldn't even get the numbers right. Honorable Prime Minister, I want to see if I get the numbers right. 10, 11, 12. Needless to say, those were called at the last sitting. Only no one moved when it was called. Here is the Assistant Clerk of Parliament.
Item number 12, statements by ministers. Item number 13.
You have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whereas debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the 4th session of the 11th Parliament on Friday, the 12th of September 2025, was deferred to a date to be named. Be it resolved that the said address be now further deferred to a date to be named. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, just approach the bench. You have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In respect of item number 12, as initially called, I withdraw my previous statement. Thank you.
Thank you. You have government business? You may proceed.
Mickey Mouseness. Real Mawet. You see? Then, of course, Starboy had to flex.
Finally, Mr. Speaker, and on the assumption that you may query whether under the heading of ministerial statements I'm able to say what I'm about to say, I wish to assure you that my research suggests that I can, and it says, which is I want to say, before I say what I wish to say, I wish to point out that it says ministerial statements, particularly oral statements, could embrace any number of issues: policy announcements, responses to significant national and international events or crises, updates on ongoing situations, outcomes of international summits, negotiations or important meetings, findings of official inquiries or significant court judgments, and clarification of issues and correction of misconception with factual information. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to seek your permission to respond to your announcement, in which you read into the record a letter written to you by the leader of the opposition, indicating that they were absenting themselves from attendance, not just at this sitting, but at the sitting of the Senate. The letter went on, and if I misquote, you have the record, so I would urge you to correct me. And I'm paraphrasing here to suggest that I had publicly chided the Speaker that there's creeping authoritarianism in Parliament, that the opposition was being marginalized in Parliament, and that there was disregard for the constitutional role of the opposition. An opposition leader here today because we have a majority of one. So at least I would commend him for doing the people's work by attending Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the repeated absence, this is not the first time. Since this Parliament has been constituted, the opposition has repeatedly absented themselves, repeatedly walked out during the process, which demonstrates to their constituents a wanton disregard and neglect for the job that they were elected to. So factually, Mr. Speaker, contrary to this assertion that the opposition is being marginalized, I want to emphasize that the constitutional rule is being sidelined. That it is this administration that has worked assiduously, even against sometimes public sentiment, to strengthen the office and the institution of the opposition. It is this administration that has pioneered through the House Committee the payment of salaries for parliamentarians regardless of whether you're in the opposition or the government. So you're getting their $5,000 a month and they're not coming to work. That's the example they set. The vehicles are lined up outside in the driveway, Mr. Speaker, with a big seal, Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Northeast and St. Andrew Southeast and St. Mark and St. George Northwest. Where are they? It is this administration, contrary to a lot of popular belief of partisanship, that has pioneered and insisted that members of Parliament, regardless of whether you're on the opposition or the government side, should be provided with resources to do the work that people have elected you to do. Come and do the people work. And to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that there was some dictatorship in the House, authoritarianism, and that the adjournment of the matter to today's date was done without consultation with them. Well, first of all, we have to understand some things. You are the minority in the House. And when a motion is moved and it is voted upon and you lose, that's what being the minority is. It is not dictatorship. They sat there, a motion was moved to adjourn the matter to today, to adjourn the sitting to today, and it was done to facilitate them. It was, Mr. Speaker, when I attended Parliament, I was accosted by a reporter who told me that Parliament was not going to take place because the opposition said they didn't get the documents. That's even before I got into the chamber. So they already had gone to the public and said that. You have written into the record, you have stated that the documents were sent. It appears it was not received. Well, you know why that is happening, Mr. Speaker? Because I've seen the stuff. It's been sent to personal email addresses. It is not being sent to the Member of Parliament email address. So when we talk about institutionalized strengthening, MPs should not be receiving official documents and government briefs and parliamentary briefs on a personal email address. It should be on a Government of Grenada or a Parliament email address so that they can receive the documents. So if you have Hotmail or Gmail or whatever it is you're using and it can't take the size of the documents, and out of procedural fairness, and the Member of Parliament for the Tongue of St. George is quite familiar with the fact that sometimes procedural fairness is more important than substantive fairness. I got up when the proceedings seemed to be galloping along to say, I was told that the folks on the other side said they did not get the documents. So it will be to their disadvantage for us to insist on proceeding. And by giving them an extra week so that they could study the documents, they obviously don't want to work. The documents require too much reading, too much effort, and so the easy thing to do is to write a letter, act in a cowardly manner, accuse the House, it seems to me, because I don't know if it's me or if it's the Speaker they're accusing of this authoritarianism and of marginalizing the opposition. There should be no need to consult about when Parliament is sitting. You were employed by the people, you went and begged for the job. So come to work. Which Grenadian employees consulted on when to come to work? So, Mr. Speaker, I'm stating for the record, I'm quite eager to apologize to you if it appears that in merely seeking to provide some fairness to the opposition at their request, that we should adjourn the House to facilitate them getting the chance to read the documents. If it came across that I was rude or impertinent, or I was seeking to chide you, I humbly, for the record, apologize and withdraw the statement. And for future purposes, I will know not to intervene when the opposition is claiming that they didn't get documents or they didn't receive it so that Parliament could proceed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So now you understand why he bullied the Speaker to go back on the items so that he can get a space to flex. But look who's talking. Coming from someone who spent half of his working days out of the country with no productivity happening while he's away, when he's absent, and all but one of his ministries are functioning below average. We paying him, eh? We paying him. Under ordinary circumstances, he should be fired. And his advisors as well. And lest we forget, the member for St. David, during the 2025 budget debate, did not show up for the debate for 2 days. What is worse, he was in the Parliament building, remained in his office back there, and did not show up. Further to that, let me just say here, NDC has the record for walking out of Parliament. But I forgive the member. You see, them times he wasn't paying attention to politics, to country, and certainly what was going on in Parliament. So he would not know how many times the NDC picked up their bags and walked out of the Parliament. The member for St. David's look as one to be talking about salary and who's paying. Yes, we the people are paying. That measly $5,000 you're talking about, paid to the members of Parliament, the opposition members of Parliament as well, is used as a guise to fatten the pockets of your cabinet. After you give them the $2,000, how you come in and say you're giving them five again? So with giving the members of the opposition, you say, oh, well, you're giving all parliamentarians. It was a guise, right? And who asked you for car? Who asked all you for car? You'll buy the car because y'all want to give yourselves cars. So y'all have to give them cars too. We ain't have painkillers in the hospital, but y'all buying cars to campaign, right? Let me tell the people how much they are paying you, Prime Minister, monthly. And you spend half the time, half your month, your working days out of the country. $36,351 monthly. That's your compensation package. 36,000 plus an executive, which no other prime minister hired. And we're talking about Miss Leslie here. You have a personal photographer that you carry with you everywhere, both abroad and locally. Everywhere. right? And of course, you have what is Mr. Teddy St. Louis? Chief of Staff. Whilst Dr. Mitchell's entire package salary, allowances, etc., was $104,707 annually altogether. Deacon Mitchell's salary alone, his salary alone is $105,281 annually, right? Plus $85,000 for allowances, rent, $246,000 total for annually for rent. Now, when we total all of those three, we get $436,281 annually, compared to Dr. Mitchell's $104,707. You listening to me? $436,281 annually for the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, in comparison to former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell's $104,707. The Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is always out of the country. That's another bill. Each trip costing we the people US dollars 35 to $45,000 altogether, roughly 1.8 to 2.3 million US dollars. And he's still spending more than he was allotted. Into 2024 alone, he overspent by $2 million in travel and entertainment. In actuals, right? Which means he spent $2 million more than was estimated for him. Look who talking about $5,000 and a car. I tell all you, the opposition, don't take their car. We need medication in the hospital. We need the clinics. Our primary health care is rock bottom. That is a guys. Do not take their car. That's vehicle for campaign. All of this is deflecting the reason for the non-attendance of the opposition. The non-attendance spoke of or was a protest. It was a protest of how they are treated in the House, how the people's business is dealt with in the House. You can't just vote without consultation because you have the majority trying to bully the members into when you come, how you come, and how you do it. The members have constituents as well. They have other things happening. They have a life. They have their regular lives. But you are trying to deflect about they not doing the people's business. It is the foolish conduct of your side, the government side. Imagine the last sitting was adjourned for a continuation, for the continuation of the next sitting. You, at that sitting, all the items that was already listed, that had already happened at the last sitting, you had it reintroduced in the recent sitting, forcing, bullying the incompetent speaker, the inept speaker, to reintroduce items that was already gone, like ministerial statements, for example. A clueless bunch. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, Deacon Mitchell is the member for St. David in the lower house, not prime minister. In there, they are all equals. Moving along. Play me Mr. Andy Williams in New York in his town hall meeting.
While our technician try to fix the problem, I will still introduce the speaker. This speaker is one of our dynamic young leaders. He is our Minister of he's Minister of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation. He is dynamic, energetic, and he is ready to share some good news with you because nobody can stop 6 runs. Honorable Andy Williams.
Good evening to everyone, or good afternoon. As Brother Bones said, they cannot stop what? They can't stop it, and they're trying hard to stop it, but they can't. They have to accept it. So, let me just start with my ministry. My ministry is a ministry of mobilization, implementation, and transformation. And as the Prime Minister said, it's a ministry to get things done. When we entered office, our implementation rate was approximately 30%. When I say 30%, I mean projects and programs to be implemented were not implemented. And the surprising thing is that once it was a grant or it was money from the World Bank, you could see it not being touched. When it's money otherwise, you'll see it being touched. So you can think for yourself. And let me just say this. We had approximately $100 million in projects when we came in June 2022. And over a 4.5-year time span, out of that $100 million in World Bank projects, only $13 million was spent, which means you had programs and projects that was there to be implemented that was not implemented. Since we came in office, for the first year, the implementation rate increased from 30% to approximately 87%. Now, I heard the leader of the opposition making noise about the Ministry of MIT. We shorten it. And I said to myself, any person who loves Grenada will not even have an issue with a Ministry of Implementation, because we need projects and programs to be implemented. We had a project called the UK SIF. That project was an $80 million EC dollars grant we got from the UK. Dave Cameron visited Grenada in 2015. And when he came and he saw the state and everything and they entered into negotiation, he committed the UK to $80 million EC dollars as a grant to Grenada. Money we don't have to pay back. What happened? When we came into office in June, and we were looking over the projects, we saw that that money was not even touched. And what the UK SIF project was, let me explain to you. $10 million was to deal with the Western Main Road and to improve the infrastructure. $70 million was to deal with a Southern Water Expansion Program. What was a Southern Water Expansion Program? Basically, you had, especially in the south of the island, they had more people coming to occupy the south. It is more densely populated now than it was 30, 40 years ago. Now, sometimes people that live on the hillside cannot get water, and now also want to increase the pressure so that they can get water. But if they increase the pressure, the pipes will not be able to take it. So that project is to replace the old pipes that are there so that we can put in new pipes so they can increase the pressure and more people can get water. Now, in October 2022, UK had a meeting with us and said because we did not touch the money yet, and they were unsure of the conditions in the UK, the economic conditions, they were going to take back the grant. So we lost $80 million because we did not implement a thing over 6 years. What happened? Our Prime Minister, he met with UK government and he renegotiated and we got back the grant in 2023. We did not get back the 80 million, but we got back the 70 million. The agreement was signed in August, and we are already on our way to ensure that we do not lose the money again, but we will implement that project. This is what this government is about. Let me make another point again. There's a Fort George project, an OECS tourism project. That project, over 5 years, had 0% implementation. What is a Fort George project? It's a project where we make Fort George into a tourism site. Basically, what it is now is a police headquarters. And since August 2017, we got $6 million US, approximately 20 million EC dollars, to convert that site into a tourism site. What happened again? Same thing. The Prime Minister, when he came into office, he gave that project to MIT and said, MIT, I want you to deliver on this. And we had approximately 8 months to deliver on that project. What we did, we started. And when we started, I brought all parties into play. Cable and Wireless, Digicel, Police Headquarters, NTRC, the Ministry of Tourism, everyone. And there was someone from the NMP camp who owned one of the towers on Fort George. And he said to me, he said, let me tell you something. The reason that project cannot get going. And that's the reason why we never touched it. But I said to him, if my Prime Minister gave me a task, it has to be completed. So we have to find a way to do it. What happened? In January 2023, we started that project. That project now is approximately 66% in implementation. And we are on our way to make Fort George a tourism site. That site, when it is completed, that site will have a restaurant, a museum, a courtyard, a place where you can sit down and see the nice scenery, bars, just name it. And the site is such a beautiful site. You have tunnels also where tourists can come and enjoy the Fort George. And this is what we are about. We are about getting things done and making things happen.
First of all, there goes Bernard Boone trying to keep his position as chairman of the New York diaspora branch, the New York chapter. They still removed him. Now let's look at Mr. Andy. Who's talking about touching money? Mr. Sticky Fingers himself, who should never refer to anyone as touching money. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell did stop the 6 runs. Who would have thought that we'd get there? The ministry to get things done, huh? Tell us, Minister for MIT, what have you gotten done in full? Minister of Implementation, what did your ministry implement in full since you came into office in June 2022? He said the implementation rate went from 30% on their arrival to 87%. Folks, from 2019 to 2022, the world was forced into a global pandemic. The only comparison to that pandemic is the 1918 Spanish influenza pandemic, which similarly caused significant negative impacts on global economies, affecting international relations, and had considerable delay in its diagnosis, treatment, and vaccines. The 1918 influenza affected less than half of the countries, and the most vulnerable groups were healthy adults between the ages of 25 years and 40 years, while COVID-19 affected nearly all countries in the world. And the most vulnerable group were adults over 65 years of age. Victims of the 1918 influenza mostly died from secondary bacterial pneumonia, while victims of COVID-19 mostly died from an overactive immune response, resulting in organ failure. Although 50 million persons died from the 1918 influenza in comparison to 2.2 million from COVID. While the economic impact for the 1918 influenza was minimal, for COVID, it was in the trillions, a 5.76 trillion to 6.17 trillion decrease in gross domestic product, GDP. The comparisons are important to understand the long-term effects of COVID-19 pandemic. All hotels were closed. No cruise ships docked. Construction sites shut down. Food was rationed. So which government, which administration were implementing projects during COVID? One of the world's most catastrophic pandemics, economically, the worst global pandemic. So Mr. MIT loves to talk about things he knows nothing about. Imagine for a while there, he was our acting prime minister and spokesperson for the party and the government. Him and Ron Redhead, two crooks, two conmen, two fraudsters. Crooked as they come. If they're standing behind a corkscrew, you can't see them. Now let's talk about the UK SIF water supply expansion and the sewer improvement project. This project aims to improve Grenada's water and sewer network by increasing efficiency, building climate resilience, and reducing water sector risks. The project is expected to result in an expansion and upgrade of Concord's existing distribution network by constructing a new plant and storage facilities. This will help to secure portable water supplies for St. George's and the tourism development in the south, many of which are currently supplied using private desalination plants. The project will also look at improving sewer infrastructure in the Carenage port area in St. George's, which currently experiencing overflowing duration periods of heavy rains. Now, according to the CDB website, and that information I just read to you, they came from the CDB website. Now, what happened to that $70 million? Because as we speak, contractors have not are not being paid, And they have to borrow monies from the credit unions and other lending institutions to pay their workers or to continue the work. The lending institutions are becoming worried and are uneasy because the government is not keeping up their side of that bargain to pay back the institutions the monies borrowed by the contractors. Now, Andy, the grant monies that your not so beloved prime minister these days got back, where is that money? Why is it the roads are in the condition it is in to date? No paving, no repaving starting after weeks. And I did my research and spoke to the relevant persons. And that, the testing of the pipes to see if it's leaking, as you all say, that should only take, as I understand it, a week. As a matter of fact, 48 hours. You should know whether the pipes are leaking or not in 48 hours. And after you ram and whatever, after a week, 2 weeks at most, the paving can be done. So don't tell people you're waiting to see if the pipe only. When you going to wait till next year? All Christmas come, we waiting to see if the pipe leaking. You guys know you don't have the money. And then you have problems with the asphalt. But I'll deal with you on asphalt next week. Right? Didn't you, Minister Andy Williams, and Minister Lennox Andrew, travel to Barbados to talk about the same UKSIF money to try and save the project? What happened? What happened then? Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about the Prime Minister went to save the money, right? Now, I've shown you this before. We spoke about this before, that when he speak about nothing happened, he needs to go to the CDB website, which tells you, and you'd see something max status, which tells you what's been happening before COVID came. It says here in November 2016, technical assistance, a grant to prepare capital project approved. And that's the UKSIF project, right? In December 2017, consultations engaged to prepare a facility designed and detailed design. Now, these are things NDC don't do. There's just go and excavate and lick down people's houses and people property and right? But these things happen, if you, in case you all don't know. Then, in 2019, the project approval of capital project, after all the testing, all what has to be done was done in 2019. And then what happened in 2019? COVID-19 shut down, right? So, and after COVID-19 ended in 2022, when you all came into office. What needed to be done was already done between 2016 to 2019. When COVID came, COVID-19 pandemic arrived, then construction sites said, "Oh, nobody was studying to dig up a road to put pipes." You don't just start digging in the first place and laying pipes. Though we know that is the commissioners-led administration trick. No testing, no feasibility studies. That's not part, you know. what did the ambassador and advisor said? Nation building, you broke bureaucracy. So you just, move on. You don't go to do all these things. There are certain processes and procedures that have to happen before you start digging and laying pipes. Right? And that's why we know of all kind of broken down houses, botched up so-called build back better houses. That's why these houses, build back better, not approved by our planning authority. The original one was. And since then, not one. But when you see the state of these houses, you know that planning authority could not have passed these houses. Young men picked up off the blocks, and 2 weeks later, they're building houses and they're building roads. You said it yourself. You said it. And then what happens? Here is what, Auntie Glow. If you look on your screen, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's a new Build Back Better house given to a poor family without bathroom and toilet, I might add. Right? Look at the state of the house. Missing windows. So they board up the spaces where the windows have to go. And this house didn't get hit by a hurricane yet. Just look at it. It looked as if it went through burial. No toilet and bath. Imagine building a Build Back Better house in 2024, 2025 with no toilet and bath. These are the people who boast about the WASH program, right? What happened to the WASH program? Now, here is why we're in this disaster with these Build Back Better houses. Here is Minister MIT, Minister of Implementation, as he spoke of how he got through to building these houses.
I went, for example, in the Limes, got guys to come. We had a meeting on the Limes basketball court and got guys off the block to come and start to paint, plumbing, electrical, even in Granance Valley. Yeah, we have guys like John Del Fletcher, who came in as a young person and just learning some of the stuff in construction. Now he's building houses, he's doing roads.
And so no wonder the results. But you see, if you hire non-professionals, you can pay them anything you want, right? You can give them a little 5,000 and say, those boys of the blocks, hold that. And therefore, the balance goes in your pocket, right? And we have cases where you give them the check to change for 15,000. The job is 10,000. You tell them, take the 10 and bring back the 5 to the MIT office, right? So that's why we scrape young men off the blocks. And 2 weeks later, they became contractors. And poor Auntie Glow has to suffer the consequences of that.
And when you see what they build, it's a disaster, next disaster. So we really need to get our people, especially our young men, upgraded with skills. Yes. Because some of them, they've been around construction as a helper, but they have not acquired the skill to go on their own.
Right.
And that is a challenge.
The situation also angered the Minister of Finance, who also spoke out about it on a morning talk show, the GBN morning talk show, the To The Point show.
Constituency, St. Patrick's East. How is things in the constituency, sir?
Well, a lot is happening in St. Patrick East, and in recent time I've done some interviews on how many houses that we have actually put out in the last year since burial.
Yeah.
And I must say that things have gone apace. A number of persons would have gotten a new house. In some cases, their house repairs and so on. There are 1 or 2 houses that were started and they are yet to be completed. Some of them have issues, I would tell you, because I've heard 1 or 2 cases yesterday when I was in the field that the contractor started the house and he disappeared.
Why is that happening, sir?
I don't really know, but I mean, I believe that the persons who issuing the contracts to those contractors need to basically make sure that they vet these people properly and so on. I've heard stories on the road, which I mean, I don't even want to talk about it here right now, where a guy got money and so on, he put it in an account and so on, and every now and again he goes and take $200 from it and so on. And it doesn't appear on the person's side to be able to continue the project. So yes, we have 1 or 2 houses.
So we have a management problem there to push that.
Yes, there might be that case this one. But I want to put out a warning out to the persons who have collected government monies and did not do what they should do with it and so on, or use it for other purposes and so on. We would have the audit department audit those things, and would have the necessary step taken to make sure that you can account for the monies that you were given. I know there are problems where, for example, somebody might tell you, well, this is the land and so on, and when I say we, the ministry took it as though that's a gospel, and they went and started building that house, and then realized that there was somebody coming and challenge, you building on my land. Again, we have to be more structured, put things in place to make sure that we can verify ownership of property before we get into building those things. So yes, there might be some learning situation in the past that we have to take into consideration, where people build on people's land that was not authorized. And so we, going forward, have to make sure that all of these things are corrected. It may not be just a matter of mismanagement. It may be a matter of people not being upfront with the information they gave them.
The Minister of Finance spoke out there against the Minister of MIT and his ministry because they are the ones that were issuing contracts, right? You and your MIT ministry gave out the contracts. You still believe anyone speaking ill of MIT don't love country? That's what you said. Anybody speaking ill of MIT don't love country. You love country or you love money. Which one? The Prime Minister apparently don't love country because he took away the Build Back Better program from you. Sadly, 116,417,428 too late. Now, I could give you a breakdown of this. Now, in 2024, after burial, in the supplementary budget, $24.5 million was given to Andy Williams. We put cat to watch cheese. 24.5 million. Now 15 million was to build 200 homes at $50,000 per home and houses they were going to sell. We hear nothing about that project. $250,000 home. He was given $15 million for that. He was also given $8 million. And that $8 million was to do some roads, small roads, in the north, in St. Patrick area, and 26 houses that were already being built, to finish off them, 26 houses, and to build 15 new ones, right? So he got 24 million there. In the 2025 budget, first let me see in the 2024, he overspent some $11 million, $526,000, right? And then for 2025, he got $43,891,005, right? And in 2024, with all that monies he got, he still overspent. As we understand it, he already overspent in excess of 12 million for 2025. And he was boasting all over that he spent 40 million already was spent. And no one asking him where. Where are these houses that he spent $40 million on? Where are these houses? And that is why a $200,000 job, case in point, the Cloger Road project turned into Closer land slippage project and is running the government into millions and still counting, because work halted, the work not done, and millions already spent. All you're going excavating without no formal study done on the area. Breaking water mains. Same thing with the Molyneux land slippage project. Broke water mains there as well. And also with the UK SIF, this time you broke 3 sewer pipes. Moving into projects ad hocly and unplanned. So that's what you figured NNP should have done. Because for you, from 2016 to 19, when they were doing all that, the necessary things to get the job done, nothing was done. Nothing was done. The Western Road Corridor upgrades. This project, another CDB, engaged consulting services to prepare feasibility studies and detailed designs for improving climate resilience and safety along 26 kilometers of Grenada's Western Road Corridor, from the capital, St. George's, to the village of Victoria, St. Mark. A road safety assignment and an international capacity assignment and preliminary capacity building programs to support the excavating agency. The expected outcome: improved decision making on the design and resources for a capital project developed based on these outputs. Another coming from the CDB side, right? And it outlines here, in October 2017, technical assistance approved. October 2021, design consultant engaged. And in June of 2023, they expected technical assistance completed. It's supposed to be what's supposed to be completed. That is in June, when Ole come into office. And this is how it was laid out, right? Now, lest we forget, Andy Williams, Minister for MIT, said to the people in New York and on every program and in Parliament that they lost 10 million towards the Western Road corridor upgrades. They got back, it was supposed to be a total of 80 million for the UK SIF project, and they only received 70 million after the Prime Minister negotiated. And so they lost 10 million for the Western Corridor project. However, in the Parliament in the 2025 budget presentation, the minister told us that the Prime Minister gave him that project. So the project that was supposed to be for the Western Main Road, the Western Corridor, was given to him for the South. We were told that in the Parliament, right? Now, what was most important between 2019 and 2022 for the former administration, right? What was most important was to take care of its people, right? The COVID-19 economic support stimulus packages, better known as CES, the CES program. So when they come and they're jumping up with CES monies, they met that day. That started after COVID-19 or during COVID-19, right? Safety nets program for the vulnerable populations affected by COVID-19, and that was another concern of the former administration, the COVID-19 crisis, and support to formal sector employment programs and the financing, the planning, the economic development, and fiscal development. In other words, putting people first. That's what was important then, right? The lives and the livelihoods of our people. Bear with me now as I share with you some of the details of what I just spoke about. Now, 2 cabinet submissions were made to the Cabinet of Grenada. One, it says the safety net programs for vulnerable populations affected by the COVID-19 crisis 2019 Economic Stimulus Package 2.0. Submission by the Minister of Finance, Economic Development, Fiscal Development, and Energy. Date submitted the 26th of August 2021. And what came under that? And I'm going to just do headings, purpose, and the brief descriptions. Then that's number 1. Then we have unemployment benefit program. Asked to authorize the Ministry of Legal Affairs to prepare the legal instruments to facilitate this process. Cabinet may recall that regulations for the NIB to administer temporary unemployment benefits were drafted and approved for the post-Hurricane Ivan UBP and for the recent stimulus package UBE rolled out in 2020. 2, strategic relevance and urgency. The protracted nature of the COVID-19 pandemic is expected to continue to exert significant microeconomic and fiscal pressure on Grenada's economy. The economic recovery is expected to be slow, and the economy is not expected to return to its pre-COVID-19 output levels for at least the next 2 to 3 years. In this context, sustained policy support is necessary to stimulate a faster recovery while continuing to protect the most vulnerable. 3, expected benefits and target beneficiaries. 4, other likely impacts. 5, evidence that proposed intervention is needed and will work. 6, other options considered. 7, consultation across government, other ministries consulted on draft submission. Then we have Ministry of Social Development, ministry consulted on the project but not on the draft submissions. Ministry of Youth Development, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Tourism. We go down, we had 8, financial implications. 9 is a form to fill out there. 10, legal implications. 11, implementation risk and monitoring. And 12, external consultation and communication. The Ministry of Finance worked jointly with the CDB in designing the program. Consultations were held with the program administrators, including the relevant ministries and statutory bodies. Sector consultations were facilitated by CDB and the government of Grenada. And so this document had 4 components. Component 1, protection of the vulnerable population currently on the roster of existing cash transfer programs. Component 2, protection of the vulnerable population not currently on the roster of transfer program working in the informal sector. Component 3, protection of the vulnerable population not currently on the roster of transfer programs working in the formal sector. And 4, internet connectivity program support to students, Government of Grenada funded program. These are the things that the former administration was working on during the time you thought they should have been working on the UK SIF project, when there was no construction happening, no tourism, nothing happening, right? And our people trying to recover from COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic. Our businesses all fell down. The small hotels, because they were closed throughout the time, they needed help. They needed stimulus to recover. Monies were put into the development bank. That's where you, Andy Williams, when NDC came into office, you got $300,000 as if you own a small hotel. The board of directors of the development bank gave you 300,000, the highest amount of monies given to the small hoteliers. 300,000 of that money went to you 6 months after entering office, so you can pay people you owed. When that wasn't enough, they turned around and gave you 2 million in January. A few months later, they gave you, I think it was March, 2 million more added to the 2 million you were owing them already that you were not servicing, right? When hoteliers went to get monies, the money done. One small such hotelier took a small amount, and it didn't take her to where she wanted. And when she went back to access the rest, there were no monies because they give you $300,000, right? Now the 2021 budget statement, right? Micro, small, and medium enterprise, right? Additionally, government increased funding to the small hoteliers facility and the small business soft lending facility at the Grenada Development Bank GDB, and also eased the terms and conditions to access the funds. Government also temporarily deferred the monthly advance payment on corporate income tax and the installment payments on the annual stamp tax, all in a concrete effort to help micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSME, to maintain operations and preserve jobs. I mean, I could go on here, but it's going to take up a lot of our time. But these are the things that they were doing. Let us now move on to Fort George project. In 2017, according to the Minister for MIT, Andy Williams, the government got 20 million EC dollars for the project. Now, for a project of that magnitude, all kind of study has to be done, drawings and designs to be made. And again, COVID-19 in 2019 to 22, NDC took office in June of 2022. The Prime Minister, according to Minister Andy Williams, when they took office, gave the project to MIT and said, MIT, I want you to deliver this. 8 months to deliver that project. He said it. You heard him in the clip. According to the minister, the project started in January of 2023 to be delivered in August of 2023, 8 months later. Now, 2 months shy of 3 years later, the Minister of MIT, the Minister of Implementation, is yet to deliver the Fort George project. In true NDC style, the project has had multiple problems, breakdowns, and build back up as a result of no proper planning, no proper tests done. The estimate for the project, $13 million. Almost 3 years later, already exceeded $20 million and counting. The project not near ending as yet. I believe I heard somewhere the Prime Minister rating up the MIT ministry saying the project was 85%, had an 85% implementation. Joke Jody, as they would say. And here we have a Spanish, as in from Spain, consultant. And those persons that attended that town hall questioning the implementation of the projects they were told of at that town hall in July of 2023. That was the same town hall. The people were told about the minister's trip to India, where he received $1 million towards a coconut factory.
Let me just mention that when you go to Grenada, you see your mangoes, your golden apples, your fruits on the ground spoiling. But if you look back in the days of the great Mawet Bishop, there was a time when we had factories and we were doing our pulps and juices and so. But that was in the 80s. 40 years passed. And it's like we regress instead of progress. So one of our plan is to bring back agro-processing in Grenada. And I am not just saying it. Anyone could say anything, but you need to back it up. So when I went to India 2 months ago, I met with the Indian government, and they pledged to give Grenada $1 million in equipment, any equipment we want, to start our factories. Now, we have better news. When I go back to Grenada, the delegation will be visiting Grenada, and they said, Andy, that 1 million is now 2 million. So we have a chance to really push agro-processing in Grenada. And our dream is not to have it in St. George's, because everything is centered in St. George's. But we have to start promoting the urban to rural migration. And if we can have factories in the north and in the middle of the island, what it means is that infrastructure can be improved, housing can be improved, and everyone do not have to run to St. George's for a job.
In a Facebook post of his achievement as Minister of Implementation, he spoke of him importing coconut plants. So I went in and I asked about the years it will take for coconut to bear, which from previous I readings, and so I know it took like 15 years for coconut to bear. But I was informed by the minister the ones he imported will only take 4 years to bear. And I quote, Jennifer Simon, we have already ordered 5,000 plants from Mexico and Brazil, which takes 4 years to bear fruit. With the Ministry of Implementation involved, we will surely increase the number. It's a great time to be a farmer. End of quote. Almost to date, as a matter of fact, not one coconut tree has landed on the shores of Grenada. 4 years, almost 4 years ago, these coconut trees left Mexico and Brazil for Grenada, right? From the Minister of Implementation, he ordered these 5,000 coconut trees. Where are they, Minister? They are almost ready to bear, because you said 4 years, they bear fruit in 4 years. It's almost 4 years. Now, at that said town hall, one of the questions was basically, what are we giving for what we're getting? If you understand. Let's hear what the young lady had to say.
Just have a quick question. You talked about involvement from foreign countries such as India and China, and you spoke about a lot of numbers in terms of funds that they're giving us. Only one, if I'm not mistaken, is in terms of grants. So I want to know, what's the catch? What are we giving these countries in return for all of this capital that they're giving us? Because we don't want Nigeria, we don't want things where we're selling off our island in order to build it up. I think that holding the integrity of what Grenada is and who Grenada is really important to me as a child of Grenadians and someone who values her Grenadian heritage. So what's the catch? Like, what are we giving these foreign nations in exchange for all of this money that they're giving us?
Now, Lord, you can go down one, Junior? Oh, okay. So, I can tell you about India. St. Vincent already got the grant from India. Suriname already got the grant from India. Now, when I travel, when I leave here, I'm going to South Korea. In about 10 minutes, I'll have to leave to go. Now, when I travel, I don't travel empty-handed. I travel with some concepts and some concepts of what we will need in Grenada. So when the meetings are finished, I will sit down with the Minister of Trade and say, hey, we will need XYZ in Grenada. What can you give, if possible? And there are grant funding outside. The UK give us grant to fix our infrastructure and to fix the road system. Grant we don't have to pay back. China gave us a grant for housing that we don't have to pay back. As far as I know, there is no catch. The grants are available or were available in India just to access, and no one in Grenada was doing it. But I saw it and I accessed it, right? So to say that what we have to give back, as far as I know, there's nothing we have to give back. And also, you have a lot of grants outside, especially in the area of climate change. Because what happens is that the developed world, they do all the pollutants to cause the climate change. But we are the one in the Caribbean and so that face the lasting or get the lasting effects of it. And there's a lot of grants in climate change. But you have to focus, you have to know where they are, and you have to get them to improve your country. If you go to take a loan for everything, you will be in debt till you can't pay. And I think that was happening to some of the African countries. They took loans over what they could pay. And that's a strategy that was done in order to keep them at a certain level.
Are you bad talking the African countries, Minister? And to the lady who asked the question, honey child, don't let our beloved Prime Minister hear you saying we don't want to be a Nigeria. Okay? Now, the minister said he saw it and he accessed it. So where is it, Minister? Huh? He said when he got to India and they'd finished and they're around the table and he says, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. What can you give us? Negotiation, implementation in your tail. The grants were available in India just to access. And no one did it. I saw it and I accessed it. So where is it? All you ever hear, more nonsense. And for these people, some of them look quite intelligent. A few of them I know, they are, to sit there and gullibly accept that. Clapping. And today didn't ask a question about this whole town hall. And nothing he said there came to life to date. And this was in 2023. Pure rubbish. And that is what we have to deal with. I guess the Prime Minister finally saw. He did, in the earlies, but I guess when you dip your head so deep in already, you're just hoping for the best, right? They say he's our best minister. Our best minister. So much so, his fans has even say he's doing a better job than the Prime Minister. But when it comes to grants in climate change, we know you know about it, because we understand that between you and the Minister for Climate Change, you are accessing these grants and that the monies, for some reason, are passing through MIT. And the movement, it's not staying there long, eh? It's passing through and then being moved to private accounts. We asked that if this is true, to come forward and explain to us what's going on with the monies, the grants accessed through climate change. And so MIT have a movement of monies that, according to the Minister of Finance, is illegal. Let's hear him.
The Minister of Finance is always traditionally, of course, responsible for payments. There's a conversation that I've been hearing. I just want to get... I'm asking you this question for clarification purposes. Responsible for payments, as I mentioned, the Minister of Finance. Can another minister collect checks and distribute them for service providers? Can that actually happen?
The Ministry of Finance has specific functions.
Yeah.
I could outline some of them. We prepare the budget, we collect revenues via our Customs and Excise Department as well as the Inland Revenue Department.
Yeah.
Right? And all of this money is deposited in our bank accounts. The general one called the Consolidated Fund. And that's where, for example, all the monies that government collect, whether it is tax or non-tax revenue, goes. Yeah. And from there, we basically allocate and distribute that monies. The Ministry of Finance also is ultimately responsible for making payments to suppliers, individuals, public servants, and other entities and so on. But to do so, we rely on a number of elements coming in, the ministries, the departments, and so on, making sure that they send the information into the system, which is monitored by the Accountant General Department and the Treasury. So, for example, if a Ministry of Work has a project and a claim surface from them, it comes to the Ministry of Finance. And from the Ministry of Finance, and somebody's checking it and realize, okay, there is a problem with the number that they ask us to pay. Maybe it was same number. Yeah. We have to query that because we are the last stop before things go out and so on. Well. So it's not a simple saying that the Ministry of Finance, is the one responsible for paying. We pay, but it must be an authentic information in the system. Yeah. If there's problem with information in the system, we have to push back. And sometimes again, I've had cases and so on where people say, oh, it's down in the Ministry of Finance and so on, and they're not paying and so on. When you do your investigation, that thing have not even left the Ministry Department as yet. Or the person doing it and so on did not complete the assignment and so on. So how can I pay if I haven't received something? So yes, there are issues or instances like that. And we have to work very hard in terms of maintaining the integrity of the system at all times. We try to at all times. But again, it doesn't depend on that department called or that ministry called the Ministry of Finance to do everything. We have to do our check and balances. We have to make sure everything is right before we print a check. So I'm saying that if garbage coming out there and so on, and we accept the garbage in the Ministry of Finance. You remember the phrase, "Kaigo, garbage in, garbage out"? Yes. That would what would happen and so on. But I say Ministry of Finance is the medium by which we basically interact with the information that comes in and pay based on whether or not that information is authentic.
All right. So no other ministry could, of course, have the authority to do that?
No. Okay. In fact, I cannot instruct the Accountant General or anybody in any of my departments to do something that is illegal. I cannot instruct them.
All right.
So the movements of monies in that MIT ministry, the changing of checks, the collecting of cash, the giving out of cash is illegal. And what is the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Grenada doing about it? It's illegal. You just heard the Minister of Finance say that it is illegal. To answer to what's going on in Grenville, in that same town hall, here's what the Minister of Implementation had to say.
I do not have a question, I have a concern. Everything sounds nice. I want to know about Grenville. Grenville is like a shanty town. My concern is what has been done for Grenville in terms of beautification. That's it. Thank you.
So, So for Grenville, the same things apply with the relic vehicles. The cleanup, we have done a cleanup in Grenville already, and we are still continuing to deal with the relic vehicles in Grenville. The 4 MPs for Grenville, or the 4 caretakers for Grenville, well, St. Andrews, sorry, right. They have a plan. Part of the plan will be to take back some of the lands and to backfill and to put some areas for recreation in Grenville. But we also have a bigger problem in Grenville, and we have done a study because every time rain falls, Grenville flood. It was said the problem was fixed, but it only became worse, right? So part of the problem will be, part of the solution will be to install pumps certain places so that the water can be pumped out and not just stay and flood the area.
So how the pumps working, Minister? How the pumps in Grenville work out? Anybody know where the pumps are situated and see if the pumps cuckoo tear? Saying anything and have people believe in this nonsense. So I'm guessing there's no more flooding in Grenville as we speak. I'm just asking for myself. So the minister spoke of the Chinese gifted houses to the nation, and then the same houses that they turn around and sold to the people, there might not have been cupboards and closets, as he said, but to retrofit the bathrooms, it's a lie. That is untrue. But let's hear what he had to say.
When we entered government, we met some of the houses in phase 2 are already built. But in those houses, you had no closets, you had no cupboards, the bathroom was not outfitted, nothing. There were no tanks in case, there's no water, the people would just suffer for lack of water. What we did, we ensured that cupboards were installed. We ensured that the closets were installed. We ensured that the bathroom was outfitted. We ensure that when you come into the house, you are coming into a house ready to live in. Now, what is the sense? How you can be calling a house a low-income house, and when someone comes in, they say have to get money to pay a carpenter to build all these things?
Bear in mind, he's speaking about the properly built Chinese housing project, right? You just bear in mind. Oh, you have to get back carpenter and you have to get who to come and build if you get in a properly built. Look on the screen of what Andy Williams, Minister Andy Williams, and his ministry built for people after the Beryl hurricane. You just look at what he built without bathroom, period, without windows. You gave that. And there are others, There one very close to that said one. And others. That's what you actually give keys to someone for, too. You give them keys to go into that building because they don't have anything better. They gone in, board up the windows because they had no windows, no toilet and bathroom. And you talking about the Chinese. Look. What kind of people are you guys? Eh? And people sit down there and gullibly taking that thing. I'm embarrassed for you, the people in the diaspora who continue. And the baddest Johns on Facebook, The baddest Johns on Facebook. When he spoke of beautifying the town of St. George.
Also, Grenada is a beautiful place. Beautiful. Sometimes we travel to the Bahamas and so on, we see all Miami and we see all the beautiful palm trees and so everything nice. And when you come back to Grenada, we have beauty and we are not making use of it. So my ministry have a project called the Visible Transformation Project. And that project is where we look to beautify Grenada. When you go to Grenada, you will see all old vehicles by the side of the road. Sometimes a fire truck want to come out of fire, no space to pass because vehicles are just blocking up the space. We have started collecting the derelict vehicles already. We have started collecting derelict boats. We are in a process right now of cleaning up the water because sometimes you have yachties come into Grenada and settle outside and dump all the waste in the water, destroying our coral reef. We have already started to beautify the Wall Street area. We have already started to beautify the Lagoon Road. And as I speak right now, we have a crew in St. George's that are beautifying the St. George's area.
Folks, let me show you what the St. George's area look like today. Look at the screen, you see what our carronage, our pristine carronage. Look at the sidewalk, right? Look downtown. Look at the sidewalks downtown. But a month ago, I saw in the news, the local news, where a woman was walking down St. John Street, at the bottom of St. John Street. Her feet to her ankle went down in a hole. She broke it. They had to get help to take her out of there. In the town of St. George. Look at the traffic light. I think it was the ambulance knocked it down when there was that fire in town on St. John Street, trying to get to the fire. No, who tell them put traffic light there to start with? Right? It's on the ground still. And it's walking on the ground, you know. I was told, I didn't even realize. I was told it's walking on the ground. You do light straightened on the. They board it up, board around it. Oh, what they did? Built a garbage bin. Look at it. Look at the state. In the middle of the city. And we're talking about beautifying the city and derelict vehicles. How many derelict vehicles were moved? And the ones that was moved and sent to Trinidad, the question is, what happened to that money? Where did the monies for those derelict vehicles, the few that went down to Trinidad to sell, who sold them? Who pocketed the money? Where's the money? Did the money go into the consolidated fund? And why was the project stopped? Look on your screen, look at vehicle. Look, that's a derelict vehicle there. They were doing road work. And what did they do? Look at how they walked around the derelict vehicle. That's how we remove derelict vehicles. All talk. And let me tell you guys, stupid season around the corner. And I have to call it town hall season when it comes to NDC. And they're going to bring us back into town halls and make more promises and tell us more nonsense. What they're going to do. And in some instances, what they did. I saw a town hall the other day. One minister said they built 200 houses in that area. No one in the area know where these houses are. Right? So, that's the beautiful town of St. George. That the minister there, the minister of implementation, is taken care of. And finally, at this town hall, at this time, things was nice. Things was really nice. And so he sang praises towards his leader, the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, called him a visionary.
We accept that sometimes people want to come back to our Tri-Island state, but our healthcare is not in good shape. Now, immediately, well, during the campaign, we said that our mission will be to improve healthcare. And the Prime Minister's dream is to build a new hospital. And not just a new hospital, but a new teaching hospital. It's a shame that we have SU, one of the best universities in the world when it comes to medicine, and our healthcare is in shambles. What happened is that when the students finish their academics, they have to travel to the USA or the UK to do their practical. But if we have a teaching hospital, they can do it in Grenada. And our citizens can benefit from the doctors who are in Grenada. What we did immediately, we acquired approximately 89 acres of land in the Calavini area. And we are now in conversation with developers who are willing to come and fund the hospital for themselves. And what we want to do again is to enter into a PPP, a public-private partnership. But in doing so, we accept that we have to fix we have to introduce the national health insurance. And when I say national health insurance, I mean an insurance where the citizens of Grenada can use that in order to access healthcare at a lower cost. And if we do that, we can fix the problem of healthcare in our country, where you in the diaspora, you do not have to really hesitate if you want to come back to Grenada to live, because you know that the healthcare facility will be top notch. And this is what we want to do. Healthcare is number 1 on the agenda. We have skill training, number 2 on the agenda. And also, I spoke about the Chinese housing at the beginning, but we want to do some Grenadian style housing in the future. I'm going to say in the future, I mean starting next year. So we have a project called Project 500. And that project is being led by the Honorable Minister of Social Development, Philip Telesford. We have already identified lands in Boucheju and other places. And the next step is to get developers to come, get local contractors to come, get the banks involved. And we're going to do a project called Project 500, where we are going to build 500 Grenadian-style housing. And when we do that, we are not going to stop there. We are not going to stop there. We are going to continue, and next 500, and next 500, and next 500, until we solve the housing situation in Grenada.
We all know about Project 500, but you don't want to miss next week, because we'll be talking about some of these specific things that he spoke about, the agro and so. We're going to go into some town halls and we're going to talk about these things, right? Now, when the NDC came into office in June of 2022, there was already in process. A company out of Miami, Florida was engaged and an agreement signed with that company to consult and to help with the implementation of national health insurance. What did they do, according to him? What did they do? They broke the agreement. They got rid of the company. And to date, there's no other startup. You hear of nothing when it comes to national health insurance. But they're building Project Polaris, right? They're building Project Polaris. Now, the visionary prime minister that the new teaching hospital is his brainchild. No, that is not Prime Minister's Deacon Mitchell vision. Look here in my hand. You see this? It's the NDC Achievement Booklet. And I'm going to read. And this booklet came out when NDC was in office between 2008 and 2013. And under health, entered into a groundbreaking agreement with St. George's University, addressing 14 areas of cooperation, including the establishment of a clinical teaching program and the development of a teaching hospital. Construction is scheduled to begin in 2013. Agreed on public-private partnership for the new 184-bed General Hospital with clinical teaching facility, estimated to cost US $67 million. EC $181.0 million. No, the same lands that Project Polaris is going to be on was identified by the Tillman Thomas NDC administration. However, it wasn't 89 acres. They were going to build a new teaching hospital, not a medical village. Not a medical village, right? When NNP regained office in 2013, I remember clearly the Minister of Health saying they have to weigh what they do, whether they spend monies on the old hospital, fixing the new wing that they had botched up, really, and or building a new hospital. And they decided to do the new wing where our emergency and so are now, the ER and so are in now, than to build a new hospital. I said it time and time before. Yes, we need a new hospital. But what is the priority? Our priority is saving lives. And so we fix what we have, we furnish it with what it needs, equipment, materials, whatever it needs, medication, gloves, suturing material, whatever it needs. We take care of our primary health care, build a new primary health care from scratch. We have none now as we speak. Before we think about building a new hospital or a new medical city. So this idea, this vision, this dream is not of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. What he had was a nightmare. The Project Polaris nightmare. We'll give him that. He can keep that. Project Polaris. Also mentioned in the 2013 party manifesto of the NDC was a new teaching hospital. So him and Andrea St. Bernard and the likes, they could dream on with the nightmare of Project Polaris. And we have another nightmare. They had another nightmare, I should say, in that of Heroes Park. Have you all seen the drawing? Look on your screen. Beautiful, huh? Beautiful. Hans will bring the news. Hans will bring the news. Folks, it's going to get rougher. But please remember, a better Grenada is possible. That's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. Always a pleasure conversing with you, trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, back at our regular schedule on Thursday. And don't forget to tune in on Thursday evening on WeFM Radio and their Facebook page as well for Simon Says 2.0, the radio version. A lot of exciting things are happening on radio with Simon Says. See you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.